Hey guys, welcome back. It is Andrew Nimsgard, and today I am going to continue with the breakdown of the My Hero Academia manga with chapter 295, which finally seems to be the end of this war arc that's been going on for so long. And not only do we get the end of the war arc, which is the final conclusion we've been waiting for so long, but we also get a new quirk. We get the return of All for One, and so much more. So I don't want to spend too much time at the beginning of the episode, but before we do that, if you are watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, all that kind of stuff. It helps us out a ton. We're going to be putting out even more My Hero content than ever. So if you do enjoy this video at all, it does mean the world if you do any of that. But you're not here to listen to me try to promote the channel. You go to every other YouTube channel for that. I want to jump right into chapter 295 and talk about what happened. So it wakes up with Deku hearing or having a voice in his head telling him to wake up, where he suddenly does jolt awake and realizes that he was knocked out by Dabi's attack. Looking around, he's relieved to see that Shoto is still alive despite being knocked out for a while now. Suddenly he starts feeling a sharp pain in his head and he realizes it must be danger sense. The quirk of the fourth One for All user, pretty much how I'm thinking this, is Spidey sense. It's not going to be super helpful in battle, but it is going to be so nice to have kind of a utility quirk with all these other quirks that he's getting, and there's so many more to go. But however, just like with Black Whip, it's starting to overwhelm all of his senses because it's a new quirk to his body that he's not used to. Best Genius and Lemillion charge towards Mr. Compress, and when Lemillion finally does strike him, Mr. Compress is unhappy that he didn't get a chance to throw his dismembered butt at them. Weird comment, but during that moment, he does think back to remember seeing a large group of near high-end Nomu that could easily turn the tide of the battle for the villains if Shigaraki does wake up and command them. So he does keep Lemillion busy while entrusting Spinner to find a way to wake Shiggy up and hiding Dabi in his scarf. Spinner remembers that Shigaraki talked about how attaching the hands of his family fed his rage but also helps keep him in peace, and not knowing what else to do, he pulls out the burned hand of Shigaraki's dad and puts it onto his face, which seems to wake him up right at the last moment as Lemillion and Best Genius are just about to get to them. Tamura wakes up and uses radio waves to blast away all of the fighting heroes while calling for the Nomus, who all turn toward them and start heading in. We find out that it's not actually Shigaraki Tamura, but instead All for One commanding his body, and he talks about, and we realize that this is All for One because he starts talking about how he has such good allies and how the heart and all that really makes them stronger. So he's talking in this third person, which obviously it's not Tamura anymore at this point. The Nomu come to pick them up and start taking them away, and Spinner starts to ask questions about, what about Mr. Compress? What about Toga and Machia? Are we just going to leave them all behind? And again, this is when Spinner finally realizes this is now All for One instead of Tamura, as he says that Tamura has now been defeated by Deku/Endeavor, so that All for One must now face those losses for his sake. Weird kind of vibe going on here, but what do you expect from one of the worst villains of all time? So Best Genius, Lemillion, Ingenium, and others try to fight and chase the Nomu as they're escaping, while many other heroes like Endeavor are just struggling to stay awake, while some Endeavor sidekicks and other heroes are coming out of the scene. Deku, finally being able to move, uses Black Whip to jump towards Tomura/All for One, but is blasted away the second he gets up in the air by their radio waves. As the Nomu are carrying a Tomura/All for One away, Deku shouts towards them saying that he has done so much unforgivable and that Deku will never be able to forgive him. But for a second, when All for One was taking over his body in that vessel state, he looked like someone who needed saving. And that shows Deku's hero complex and so much of what this entire manga is summed up in a page. That no matter what this man has done, no matter what Shigaraki has done, Deku still sees someone that needs saving for a second and is going to do whatever it takes and be physically distraught over the fact that he can't save him, and until he can save him, he'll be in that mindset. Chapter 295 finally wrapped up this war arc, and I'm really excited about it. And I've talked in the last couple of recaps. We're finally going to see how all of society is going to react to this war. It's war. That's why it's called the war arc, obviously, is that this was such a small place, but so many heroes and villains went out there. And it's not a clear win. If anything, it's going to be a loss for the heroes, it almost looks like. I mean, the number one hero, Endeavor's down. There's questions about Hawks and Endeavor's entire family. They didn't really stop the villains. Obviously, a lot of them were taken down. the League of Villains is pretty much all left behind or scattered, but the fact that All For One out there, Shigaraki, the main target of this entire raid, is still there and at 75% and going to get a chance to go up, a lot of that probably won't make it to the public, but the fact that the heroes didn't accomplish what they wanted to is going to be a huge morale boost loss for all of society at this point. So seeing the aftermath of that, but also seeing the relationship growth between Deku and Bakugo here. Bakugo obviously jumped out in front of Deku, saving him. And we even see the chapter for volume 29, what the cover is. It is that scene that so many of us seen so many times of when Deku went down into the river to save Bakugo after he fell in, but now this is an adult Bakugo with a much more sad and kind of understanding face of Deku, showing that the relationship is going to change from this point. We know that Dynamite, I guess we should call him now that he has a full name now, is still going to be his grouchy self, but after taking more or less a bullet for Deku, that relationship's going to change, and I'm so excited to see where that goes. But also the questions of how Shoto and Dev are going to. We didn't get much wrapped up here. No one really died, it seemed like. Obviously there have been a couple. Mr. Compress more or less is done. What's going to happen to Dabi as Mr. Compress is being left behind? There's so many questions about what is going to be wrapped up, and I think this next arc is going to give us a chance to get those closure and some real character development or just really good character moments while setting up and giving Deku a chance to understand the couple of new quirks he has, possibly develop one or two, and maybe even another time jump. We learned that this was 6 months last chapter since before the war arc, that there was a 6-month time gap, and that I wouldn't be surprised if there was some other gap a month or two after heroes are starting to be recovered, society is shunning heroes more or less, and Deku is getting a chance to maybe develop one or two more quirks, because All For One, now in control of Tomorrow's body, is not going to be out there flaunting around. He's pretty much lost the entire army that he had built up there, and he'll have to go back. Despite having those Nomus, it's either going to be an instant attack and almost an instant re-engagement, but with Tomorrow's body only being at 75%, I don't see that happening, and we know how long it took for him to get to that 75%, so I'm imagining it'll take a while to get up to that last 25% before we see another confrontation of All For One and One For All. But chapter 295 was amazing. I cannot wait for 296 and going into a new volume. Obviously, there's going to be a tonal shift or at least a setting change. I'm very excited for that, as I said, for all the reasons for earlier in this video. But I hope you guys did enjoy this breakdown and just a couple of my thoughts on where this chapter ended up, where it's going to go. And let me know what you guys want to see next. Do you want this big character setup and this slow time looking at how heroes are? Or do you want Deku to go after no matter what? And maybe the war arc isn't over. Maybe Deku will go past his limits and chase after them now and continue the fight and force the fight to happen now. We have seen Horikoshi just recently in an interview saying that the series may end sooner than later. I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, but maybe we're approaching the last couple of arcs, and seeing what happens in these last couple of arcs is going to be so exciting for anyone even slightly a fan of My Hero Academia. But thank you so much for watching this video. I will be back next Sunday with a new video covering chapter 296. Until then, have a great week.